Hi, everybody. My name is Carrie Smith, and the coolest shit I've ever done. Well, I can't tell you that, Sean, because I have so much cool shit that I've done. So let's start with like climbing Ayers Rock, riding an ostrich. Oh, riding an elephant behind my friend, and the elephant had a cold. And every 5 minutes, the elephant went and snot came up and hit her in the face. I was marching in the closing ceremonies of the Olympic Games in 1998 with the hockey team. I survived a 56-hour flight with Air Canada. I have cool stuff every day because I'm a dog physio, so I get to sit on the floor and play with golden retriever puppies all day. I have been many years working with the Canadian National Agility Team at the World Championships. I was a Canadian physio for our jousting team. Did you know we have a Canadian jousting team? I have toured World Cup with the national rugby team. I had first tracks in powder in the Dolomites in Italy. I'm a big skier, and I had first tracks twice in the same day. And I skied behind a Clydesdale horse. But my absolute favorite cool shit moment was when I treated Bo, the boa constrictor.
Welcome back, my creative nerds, to the Do More Cool Shit podcast. I'm your host, Sean McDonnell, and I am excited to bring you this conversation today, episode 62, with my good friend, Carrie Smith, who is a ball of energy. And you already know that because you saw it right off the bat. I couldn't be more excited to bring this to you and to be talking about just living in cool shit, you know? But before we get there, I always want to talk about episode before and a little bit what's coming up. So if you think about episode 61, thinking in solutions instead of problems, very, very important. We all fall into this state of mind where sometimes we get ourselves stuck in the problem instead of thinking in solutions. I talk about all kinds of different mechanisms and ways to get yourself thinking in that. And one of the big ways to think about thinking in solutions is the words we use in our mouth and the words that come out of ourselves, right? And I want to talk about that in episode 63 coming up, because it is how important the words that we use in our daily lives, whether we're writing them, typing them, saying them, thinking them, that can wholeheartedly affect your mindset. And it's one of the key factors, I think, in terms of like doing more cool shit and moving forward. It can't be more powerful than our own words and our own brain. But let's get into today's episode. I have a conversation with Carrie Smith. It's so good. Now, I do have one forewarning. So this is a video episode, obviously. Carrie is so hard to track down. So when I tracked her down and we had a little bit of a technical problem, not even a problem, we couldn't use our regular software. We ended up doing a Zoom call. So there is a few little buffers here and there. But we're so lucky to have Carrie with us. Of course, this is a video episode as well as an audio episode. So if you're watching, or if you want to watch it, you can go over to YouTube, youtube.com/@DoMoreCoolShit. You'll find us there. You'll see my conversation with Carrie and I. I also couldn't figure out exactly how I wanted to edit this one. So you're going to see it edited a little bit differently. Don't freak out. It's going to be just fine. We're going to get through it. Because really it's the words, you know, if I'm talking about the next episode, it's really the words that I wanted to get to. And Carrie and I cover so much ground, and I'm so thankful. I don't understand how you couldn't listen to this and not be motivated and inspired to go out there and do more cool shit. Carrie is a ball of energy. We talk about everything from starting small and like building as you go, you know. I've always said you don't have to get yourself out there like in a huge way. You don't have to invest a shit ton of money, time, or energy. You have to invest little bits of time and energy and see as it goes. And that's one thing that Carrie and I talk about. We talk about saying yes to things. I mean, you can tell from the intro, right? Her intro, that is a lady of opportunity. That is a lady of saying yes. It is someone who is finding a joy for life and is getting more and more comfortable saying yes and yes, you know? And where those yeses lead. And I think that's so important. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy this conversation. Of course, if you have anything ever to talk about, domorecoolshit.com. Let me know. I love hearing from you guys. This is an awesome episode. I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. I hope you listen all the way through, and I will see you on the other side. Well, welcome to the podcast, Carrie Smith. I don't know how you possibly pack all that in. Also, I'm a little offended that you didn't say you got to work with me, but that's fine.
Oh, yes.
It's okay.
And I got to work with Sean.
It's fine. We'll get over that hump. But yeah, welcome to the Do More Cool Shit podcast. I couldn't have thought of a better person rather to have done cool shit than you, who clearly has this list and just keeps going and going, and it never stops. And it's been going for a long time, right?
A long time. Yes.
long time.
Yes. Yes. You
been,
kind of have to. You should live in cool shit.
What's that?
You should live in cool shit. Like, what's the
cool
point? Like,
right.
Why just live in shit, right? You might as well live in cool shit. So
right.
Yeah,
That's
love
what
it.
I figured.
Yeah.
So where did your journey? So I know that got into physio. I don't know if we want to say how many years ago, but a number of years ago.
I graduated in 85. What year were you born, Sean?
Yeah, one before that.
So I graduated in 85.
That's right. No, I was just coming out. But yes, I know you started at Kempville Physio in 1996, which is a number of years ago. Started in a closet, which I thought was fascinating.
Started in a closet, and it was quite funny because I had moved to town, and there was no physio clinic, and it was just some physio at the hospital with a 6-month waiting list. So it was like, okay, this is a great place because I was ready to start my own practice at that point. So, but I was brand new to being a practice owner. I didn't want to take a big loan to start a practice. I wanted to kind of build it as I went. So I was looking for a small place to rent because it was just myself. And there was literally a closet in the medical clinic in Kempville. And they said, well, yeah, we could rent you the closet. It would be very expensive to rent the closet. And so I had enough room for one chair, one bed, and a little desk and a phone. That was before internet, Sean, so we used phones. Right. But I had no room for anyone to exercise. So I put out all my exercise stuff in the waiting area of the medical center so that if a knee patient came in to see me, then they had to do their squats beside, an 80-year-old on oxygen and then someone with, the flu. So it's like, probably wouldn't have advised that
real
now.
Sanitary and good. Yeah, it's great.
But they all thought it was hilarious.
Sure.
So anyway, so that's where I started. Yeah.
So when you said, did you ask, you obviously approached them.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, we have a closet, and you're like, okay.
Done.
Like, that's all, I just need a little closet.
That's all I need. Well, because it didn't really cost me anything, right? And mostly, physios, we use our hand. I need a table, I need my hands, I need some needles. I do a lot of work with acupuncture needles.
Right.
And you need to just, you don't need a lot of equipment to get started anyway.
Right.
So then I just grew from there because then I wasn't in debt, right? My whole goal was to not, be paying off a ton of debt before I'd even started, right? So, yeah.
And what got you? So how did you get? Take us before the closet.
Before the closet.
How did you get prepared to go into the closet? How did you? What gave you the audacity to even bother asking someone that
yes,
question?
Well, that's an extremely good question. So by this time I was, I don't know, over 10 years in practice, right? 10 to 12 years in practice. I've taken a ton of courses. When we graduate, I always tell the young therapists, when you graduate as a physio, you can't help anybody. You're not going to hurt anybody, but you really can't help anybody. You have to take ongoing courses all the time to get better with your skills. And so I had done all that, right? I had already worked with a lot of national teams. I had a sport credential that is extra. I had a lot of extra kinds of courses. And so, and I'd worked in a number of clinics, so I kind of knew what I wanted and knew what I didn't want when I wanted to open my own practice, because, each clinic is a little bit different. I spent all of that early time kind of in Alberta and then moved back to Ontario. And then when I moved back, it was like, okay, I don't want to work for anyone else anymore. I have enough experience. I know what I want. We were moving to the Ottawa area. It had to be an English speaking town because I do not speak French. And so we settled just south of Ottawa, and then Kemptville was the closest town that had kind of doctors and a medical center. And so that's why I picked Kemptville. And it's been awesome ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
great. And what
Mm-hmm.
made you think about physio even in the first place?
Oh, well, I was always a sporty person. Probably I wrecked my own knee. And then I was thinking like of teaching like phys ed and stuff, but both my parents are teachers. And like when I would see them come home marking exams, I'm like, I'm never being a teacher, ever, ever, ever being a teacher. So what else could go with sort of sports? So it was my parents who said, well, have you looked at physio? And I didn't even know what it was. So, and then
Right.
luckily enough, I blew my knee that summer, and then I really knew what physio was.
You're like, I'm gonna
So
fix myself.
I'm gonna fix myself.
Yeah,
So really, that's how it started.
that's so fascinating. That's so interesting that like as we progress, because like, and then I guess my other question then is like, did you dream what you would be doing now, like all those years?
Well, I knew from day one, I wanted to specialize in sport, right?
Yeah.
And so then I took all the sport courses and got my kind of sport physio levels, and then got on with different teams and things like that. So that was clear like from day one. But animal rehab did not even start in Canada until the late 90s.
Right.
And so I was working at a clinic in Alberta, and Fort McMurray actually, and we were in a little strip mall, and right beside our physio clinic was a vet clinic. And one day, one of the vets comes over to our clinic, and she says, "Oh God, could one of you guys look at this dog patient of mine?" And we're like, "What?"
Yeah.
She says, "Oh, do you mind just looking at?" We're like, "Okay." So I happen to be like on a lunch hour or something. Anyway, so the dog comes over, and it's this sort of long back dachshund, and it's got this deviation in its spine. And so
Mm.
in humans, we would call it like a scoliosis or a deviation. And people get that when they get a disc herniation. We see it all the time, right, in humans. So we're like, oh, it's got a disc herniation. So we mobilize it just like we would with a human. Had the owners do some traction on his tail, to relieve some of the pressure. Kind of did these glides that we use on humans. And we're like, well, see how it goes. And he was like 90% better by the next day. So the vets comes back and it's like, oh my God, that was amazing. And we're like, wow, that was really cool, right? So
That's
then
so
literally
funny.
within a few months of that happening, the very first Canadian animal physio course was advertised, and it was in Alberta. So I'm like, I'm signing up for this and taking it. So then the rest is history. I loved it. I've always been an animal person, and it was like started with, on Saturday mornings I would work at the vet clinic and just work it in around my human practice. But and then I started kind of more dogs, cats too, but mostly dogs. Kind of in the later 2000s, after I had opened the human practice and I moved back to Ontario and opened the human practice, and that takes most of your focus at that point. But
Right.
then it was like, okay, now we have other therapists. I can step away and start to do some more animals again.
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty much all animals. It's just brilliant. Not that
I
I don't like treating humans, but would you rather listen to someone complaining about pain or sit on the floor and get your face licked, right? Yes. So
right.
it's a
Depends on what
no-brainer.
kind
Yeah.
of person you are, I think, Carrie. But yeah, for some of us, yeah. Oh, that's so funny though. But so what an interesting because I think so, I'm always talking to creatives and we're always talking about following your journey and doing this cool shit and stuff. And whatever that cool shit is, it can be so many different
Yeah.
things, right? For everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you stay open to like what a cool like what a happenstance that this happened to just be there and you're like, yeah, I'm on a lunch break. I'll look at the dog and then all
Well,
of a
I
sudden we're like,
know.
oh, I guess I'll just
Oh,
do
oh my
this
God, this
for
is my future career, right?
yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we don't think about that, right? Like we think
No.
about oftentimes like, oh, I have to study these things and do this and then I have to
Yeah.
go like how and I've always thought you were a person of learning.
But sorry, that reminds me how I got on with our national women's hockey team. I
Mm,
don't know if I ever told you this story. So I had just moved to the Ottawa area, literally 24 hours before this happened. I just moved to Ottawa. I had some friends at Nepean Sportplex, the physio clinic there, and they had told me, "Oh, we're having a sport physio meeting tonight. Why don't you come and meet some of the local sport physio people?"
Yeah.
Because we're a fairly small group of therapists. So I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I leave the boxes behind and I go up to this meeting, and so during the meeting, the kind of the president or the whoever was running the meeting said, "Oh, we just got a request from Hockey Canada. The physiotherapist they had for this big tournament is sick, and so they needed someone local to step in and cover. I think it was probably like 4 or 5 days of hockey." But it wasn't much notice, right? It was
Right.
like a week or two before, and so like everyone else is working full time, but literally I just got here,
Right.
and I'm
Right.
like, "Oh, I'm not doing anything. Like I don't care. I'll help out. I've got the qualifications, right? So I'll do it." So like you got to be able to just take take the advantage when you get it, right? Like, and we all thought it was like, oh my god, like junior A boys,
Right. Sure.
14-year
Yeah.
old boy,
Yeah.
like not a tournament you would really want to
Right.
cover.
Right.
So anyway, I'm like, I don't care. So I get there, and it's the women's national team, and it's a Four Nations Cup, and we're playing USA, Sweden, Finland, and Canada. I'm like, oh my God. And so that led me to going to the Olympics with them
Yeah.
in 98 or 90.
Yeah.
When was the Olympics? 98,
Yeah.
I think, in
98. Yeah.
Nagano,
Yeah. 98. Yeah.
because I was the first physiotherapist that worked with them.
So funny.
And I continued on with them through that whole time. So that was like, sometimes you just got to volunteer, right? And
Yeah.
you just got to get out there and say yes, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and just
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's what yeah, and I actually read that story and I thought, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
so that just sounded so Carrie to me. And now knowing the dogs too, of like just saying yes and just trying stuff. And
Yeah.
where do
Yeah.
you think that? Because not everybody has that. What do you think? How did you develop that? Like just to say yes, or I guess because things kept working out.
Well, you attract what you think about, right?
Mm.
You what goes around comes around. And so I just have always done that. I've always like, because I guess it started with a lot of sport physio, because to become a sport physio, you have to volunteer 800 hours and then do a whole series of exams to get this extra qualification. So that's a lot of volunteer time, right? The 800, and then they want it in kind of a lot of contact sports. So I always worked with hockey and rugby because those are
Mm.
your two kind of number one injury sports. And so you get used to like, yeah, I'll go, and you meet tons of great people, and they become your patients for life because they're always injured. And so when you move to a new town, all you have to do is start working with the local rugby team and you'll have an instant caseload.
Right.
So it's a very good marketing skill as
Yeah, 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 yeah.
well. But I think that kind of developed me just saying, yeah. And if you want to, and I right from day one as a physio, my goal was to kind of go with an Olympic team. And so we know, like that's just a ton of volunteer work. And if we have time, I'll tell you a little story about Canadian Olympic teams. Um, this didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine, and I think it was in Sydney, and he was working in the Canadian medical tent kind of thing, and the medical team from the UK came by, and they were doing a survey, and they were asking my friend, "Would you mind, doing this survey?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so the UK people did not think they were getting paid enough to be at the Olympics with their team because it's 2 weeks off work, and it's a,
Right.
it's a lot it's a big commitment. And so they were interviewing kind of all the first world kind of nations to see what the medical teams were being paid. So he says, "Do you mind if I ask you, what are you guys being paid to be here?" And my friend kind of thinks, and he looks down and he says, "Well, I got this T-shirt and I didn't have to pay for my flight." Like
Right.
that
Right. Right.
basically, we don't make anything. It's all volunteer, right?
Right.
So the UK's like, "What?" And so they took Canada out of the survey because we would have pulled them down so
Oh my God,
much.
that's so funny.
But it's
Because you're
all
doing it because
volunteer.
you love it.
You love it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's why if you already have a hankering for that kind of thing, you love it. And it's kind of part of what you are and what you do, and it's how you meet lots of people, and it's really fun. And so you just volunteer, you do it. It's fun. You don't do it for money. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like that uh, remind me again, I think early on you and I talked about many years ago about you learning how to do the dry needling
Oh yeah.
and you being one of the first. Is that
Yeah.
right? In Canada
Yeah.
at
I think
least?
I was on the second course that they ran, second or
Right.
third course that they ran. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
thirst for learning,
Yeah.
is that was that just inherent in you? Have you developed that over years?
No, I think again, it's like getting out and doing it. It makes you a better therapist. Let me put it that way. Like the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more you can treat what's in front of you, right? I don't like not being able to treat something or to help something. So it's like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. Like this is weird. And when a friend of mine in Kingston took the first course and I was talking to him, he's like, this is life changing. Like, this will completely change your practice. You must do this. And I knew nothing about it, but I'm like, you know what? I respect this guy. He's a great therapist. He did it on me. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then I signed up for the course. But I would say I'm kind of like, as far as physio goes, kind of always on that little bit of leading edge, because sort of started with that, and then I was the second clinic in Canada to start treating animals. And we've had sort of different things we've jumped on to really early, rather than later in the physio world, kind of
Sure.
thing. So
Have you
it
have you ever
keeps
been
you
you ever been
going.
scared about doing some of that stuff? You ever felt, do you have that
No,
feeling?
no, no, no. And sometimes when I first come back from a course, I get the patient to hold my manual so I can read the directions as I'm treating them, because I'm like, hey, I've never done this before, but I took the course, and they're like, sure. Because if you have confidence, you are confident, right?
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Do you
yeah,
have, so because you've also trained and worked a lot with lots of other physios, right?
yeah.
Do you see them being nervous and scared, and how do you work with them as a leader to kind of overcome some of that stuff?
Um, the ones I that I remember the most and who I had the best kind of mentorship and rapport with are the ones who are like me, right? And they now have all gone out to open their own practices, and for me, that's the type of therapist you want to attract into
Mm,
your own clinic, because they're going to leave at some point, but you want those people that are dynamic and entrepreneurs, and that's who you want to spend your time kind of mentoring, right? Because that forwards the whole profession, rather than, so we've had lots of students, but I don't even remember the other ones, because it was like, they didn't have that sort of same kind of personality. They're all good therapists, I'm sure, but
sure,
I
sure.
just don't even remember them. um, and then what I tell a new student is, you're going to pass this placement as long as you don't do two things: you don't kill anyone, and you don't use a machine. And they're like, what? Because I want you to use your
Mm,
hands. I
right,
want you to get in there and feel things. And they don't know how to do that. They
right.
are so reliant on equipment that they would have a hard time traveling to another country and not being able to plug something in and treat their athlete. So so when I get these kids, so I think I can help develop some of their skills by saying, this is what you're going to do in this placement. You're going to use your hands, and you're going to learn things, right? To feel things, because that's my number one thing that I can't lose, right?
And
So
well, and like I think I've always respected that need to, like, I don't know, for like get dirty, but not dirty, but like get, like,
no,
you have to
get in
physically
there.
do the
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like you've always done that too. Of like, I think of even aside from physio, but like watching you take photographs, you
Oh.
know, like that. I was like, what? You're also going to take photographs, but also you're going to treat people like in the middle of a game in a season, and you're like, wait, do you know how to take photographs? And you're like, well, I don't know. I picked up a camera and I started to take. I got this lens and that camera, and I shot this, and that was good, and this was bad, and you know. But you get better, right? And it's
Absolutely.
What do you
Yeah.
think? Because so you and I are obviously very similar because, and I wasn't always like that though. I had to work hard to not be like that, to not be afraid of that. I don't know that
Mm.
maybe, now that we're talking, it just seems like you were always kind of fearless or able to
But I
go.
think only if you have passion for it are you
Yeah.
fearless, right? Because
Okay.
this is learning and it's like, okay, this is going to make me better. And, you know, so I think you can be a bit nervous about putting your first needle into somebody, but you're not afraid of it. Do you know what I mean? If you're
Right.
afraid of it, it comes through on the other end from the patient's perspective, and you're tentative. And sometimes if you're tentative, it doesn't work. Like you kind of have to have a certain personality, especially IMS or dry needling. Like you've got to get in there. And if you've never had dry needling, I highly suggest you go try it. It's fantastic for pain and all kinds of things, but it's a little more aggressive type of treatment. And not all people are going to have kind of that personality where
Right.
they would want to do that treatment, right?
Right.
Um, so it fits me very well because that's sort of my, and that's sort of a sport person, like we've got to get it done and we got to get done now because you got to play in 10 minutes, right? We don't
Yeah.
have 6 weeks for this to get better. Yeah.
Oh,
So suck
that
it up, sunshine, and let's go. Yeah.
that's actually really great because that to me also is this is for a lot of creatives and a lot of we talk a lot about perfection. See, sometimes you just can't get shit done. It can't be perfect. But
Yeah.
it's like, I've seen and I've watched you mend someone and be like, all right, well, this is gonna get us through the next couple weeks, and then we're gonna, and then we're gonna
Yeah.
keep going here. I,
Yeah.
I love that attitude of like, we have to do what we need to do right now, and then
Yeah.
we'll figure out the rest later.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
fascinating. Um, when you're doing some of the stuff with the animals, how do you communicate?
Um, so first of all, I have a new tagline for my animal company, and my tagline is "I'm way nicer to dogs." Like, and anyone where I've treated the owner and the dog, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's true." Because it's you know what, you have to be calm.
Right, right.
It's very different than working with a sport team or whatever. So you have to be confident because they feel fear, and you have to be calm. And so otherwise they're if as soon as they're tense and nervous and not letting you do anything, you're really not going to get anything done. So it's about meeting them at their level, right? And I'm on the floor and they sniff, and especially on the first treatment when they don't know me, I don't do anything that could potentially give them any pain whatsoever.
Right.
Um, and so I do a lot of, it's called myofascial release. So I do a lot of soft tissue work with them and laser with them. So instead of needling them, I will laser over the
Mm,
acupuncture points to get that kind of endorphin release and relaxation. And once they've been in once, they usually love coming in again.
sure.
And so I'll tell you a funny story. I was in last June, I was in Switzerland doing a presentation on trigger points, and like the trigger points that we get and athletes
Yeah.
get in dogs. And so I was talking about the needling technique, which is a Canadian technique, by the way. So a lot of people don't do it around the world. It was pioneered in Vancouver.
Mm,
Um, so I was kind of talking about that, but I was also talking about this technique called myofascial release, and I don't think they do a lot of that in Europe. And so I'm presenting to a bunch of therapists, and it's a hands-on workshop. So we have about, I don't know, 5 or 6 dogs that we can look at, and it's a technique where you put your hands on the dog, and it doesn't look like you're doing anything, but there's a whole bunch of stuff happening on a cellular level underneath your hands. And so I'm treating this 10-year-old lab who is kind of sore. She's arthritic, and there's a lot of people in the room, and she doesn't know what to do. And she's not settling, right? She's like this, and this is kind of difficult to treat because she's
yeah.
not calm. And so I put my hands on her, and I'm talking to the crowd about what I'm feeling and what's happening in the fascia and what's going on. And then literally within a couple minutes, she goes, Oh, and she lies down and goes to sleep. And so like my inside voice is, oh, nailed it, right? My outside voice is like, oh yeah, this is what I would expect, it's just this is relaxing. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, thank God
Right.
she did that. Right. But that's much more my approach with animals, is this sort of, you have to be,
Right.
yeah.
Do you think people can learn? So I feel like you learn the confidence, probably over time, and as a younger person doing, I always think I attribute a lot of it to sport and like having that confidence. Do you think other people can learn confidence? I guess when they really find their path.
Of course it can. Everyone can. But you have to, when you first do something, I almost feel bad like charging people, because it's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. Like, yeah, I understand the concept, but I don't know. Like, and then eventually, and then it's a lot of practice, because for us,
Right.
it's a lot of, you have to feel this in your hands, and it takes a little while. And then you go, oh, wait a minute. Now I get it. And this is like, I don't know, 3 months later after you've been doing it. Because if you don't do it like every day and keep your hands going, but once you get the feel, you'll never lose the feel. And then as soon as you get the feel, you're like, oh, I got this. Okay, so now I like I was confident before, but I couldn't really feel what I was supposed to be feeling. And then when your brain clicks in, which is, it would be similar to reading Braille, right? It's like,
Right.
I know this is saying something, but I haven't got a clue. And then all of a sudden your brain goes, oh, I know that word, right? I've read that before. And so you start to get that kinesthetic
Mhm.
connection. And then you're unstoppable, right? Because you're helping and you're doing what you should be doing, and it's giving you results, right? It doesn't matter if that's therapy, it could be anything at all.
Right.
I've become this great marketing person because I know that this worked really well, and I know going forward these are what I need to do with this business, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that you said like, it's like I've definitely been down that road where like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah,
We'll kind of go down this road. Maybe it works, maybe it
maybe it
doesn't. But
does it. Yeah,
hopefully you learn something, as long
yeah,
as you're learning something.
always. Yeah,
Can I
yeah.
ask you about because you have a lot of energy. People haven't told now, there's always been a lot of energy. What routines or habits do you put in place to maintain so much energy in your life?
I wake up and I have a coffee, and I'm good to go.
Because you
I
love what you
think
do though, too, right?
Yeah, I love what I do.
Yeah.
And so I think if you like, it's not like I have to go to work, it's I get to go to work, right? Like, oh, it's great. Oh, look at my schedule today. It's a great day, right? Um, and if it's a day off, I try to be productive, and it's like, okay, this is what I've got to do today. And I felt like, I don't know, last year there was a snow day and I had to cancel, and there was nothing going on because the roads were terrible, and I'm at home and I'm like, I don't think I can ever retire. Like, I am bored out of my mind,
Right.
and this is only one day, right?
Right. Right.
So I'm like, I think retirement is for people who don't enjoy what they do. I
Right.
think you uh, adjust your schedule to your lifestyle, but you can work as long as you want to if you have a passion for it. So I think
Right.
that's for young people. The big thing is to find something that lights that spark for you, regardless of what it is.
Mm. Okay, we were talking a little bit about routine. Can I ask you about time management because your life seems crazy, and I hear a lot from
I
people is
bet.
like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I don't have the time to do this, or I don't have the time to do that, or like I feel drained or whatever. And I know
Yep.
you get energy from what you're doing,
Yep.
but you must have some down days. And
Oh,
like,
of course.
how do you manage time, or do you manage time, or does time manage you sometimes?
Yeah. Well, I would say it's better. Like in the last few years, I don't work, like I was working like 60 hours a week when I was, in the height of my physio practice and starting dogs on weekends, and working with some teams. And so then you do get tired, and it does get hectic, and it gets harder to schedule things. But there is, a light at the end of the tunnel, everybody, because when you hit your 60s, you don't give a shit anymore,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, okay, you know what? I can say no, I can't see you today. Like, so I have started to make more limitations that way. Like before, like I would stay late, I would come in early, I would see someone on a Saturday. It's my practice. I have like put all of this work into it. I'm not going to say no, right? And and then not that anyone was like abusing that, but you get requests from hundreds of people, right? And so it
Sure.
means you're working a lot of hours. And I have animals of my own, and I need to be able to walk them and do things with them and have social life and travel and whatnot. So now I keep to more of a more not rigid but kind of rigid schedule where I book now like 25 hours a week, which means I'm only working 35 hours a week because
Right.
I still say
Right.
yes. I'm never going to leave an emergency behind, but I don't pre-schedule as many appointments. So that helps, right? And the way I recharge is by traveling. I saw my friend sent me a funny meme the other day. It says, my parents should be happy they didn't raise a drug addict. They only raised a travel addict. So my goal for working is to get out of Dodge, right?
Right.
And so I try to have something about every 3 months or something like that. So that, and it's, like about 10 days, 7 to 10 days kind of thing is where I go. But I do a lot of different things. I have a lot of different groups of people that I kind of do things with. And so if I don't have that on my calendar, then I get tired because I feel
Right.
like I'm kind of not working towards my next adventure. Whereas I love what I do, but I don't find it's as much an adventure as maybe, going off somewhere. So like in a couple weeks I'm headed to do a Christmas market river cruise from Vienna to Budapest,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So if I have something like that scheduled,
Mm.
then I'm like, okay, let's go. Like this is going towards that. If I don't have anything scheduled, I kind of like, whoa, like, so I think for me, I always have to have something to look forward to, right? And and often I'll just and I have to schedule my day. Like I have a calendar that everything goes on the calendar. Um, and then sometimes for fun, I look on Air Canada and go into my profile. And if I don't have anything booked there, I'm like, okay, I have to book something right now. Like I should have at least one or two trips in the queue, right?
Right. Right.
So so I combat that by traveling. Yes,
Right.
which is
Right.
why
And
I
that
still have to work and can't retire.
right. And well, I think, and that's some goal setting, right? And some
Yeah,
experience. You're like, oh, I want to have this experience. I want to
yeah,
travel with these people.
yeah,
What do I need to do that?
yeah.
I need to earn this amount of money, or I have to spend this much
Exactly.
time,
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
I need to work these number of
Yeah.
hours, and
That's
then
so
in three
interesting.
months I can have enough money to travel with. So
Right.
so I tell my patients, look, be happy that I'm still working because if I didn't love traveling, I wouldn't be working. I could
Right.
retire.
Right.
But I want to keep traveling.
Right.
So
So I got to keep making
so
money.
I got to keep making money, right? So they're like,
That
okay. So every time they come in, they're like, okay, when's your next trip? Like, okay, you've got something in the queue. That means you're going to keep working, right?
I just went to this fabulous place. You absolutely have to see it, Carrie.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
first, you got to treat me.
yeah. You got to treat me. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. That's good though. I feel like that is. I feel like there is, an element to that because there is a lot of creatives out there who I'm talking with, and entrepreneurs and people that want to do things, and it's like I don't know. Yeah, the routine and the schedule is hard, and and as much as I know you joked about waking up and having coffee, it's like what are all these other things that are going to propel you forward? Do you find when you were first doing your practice, like when you first opened practice,
Yeah.
and it was like, you just what was your life like then? Because I feel like a lot of people that listen to this now are like they're just starting out, and
Yes,
it's like,
yes, which is much different place than where I am
yeah,
right
and they
now.
think
Yeah,
that they can, and it's same, it's different for me too. So I'm always trying to remember back, like,
yeah.
you
20
couldn't
years
have the
ago.
life now
Right.
if you didn't work in the closet.
Exactly, if I didn't work in the closet, exactly. And so, um, whoever invented the phrase work-life balance should be shot. I cannot stand that phrase.
Yeah.
You can't have balance.
Right.
If you are, so if you're going to do that, you're going to be mediocre at
Right.
everything you do.
Right.
And if you want to be mediocre, that's fine, right? If you want to, work 9 to 5 and have a 1 hour lunch break and two 15-hour coffee breaks and go home with not have any courses on the weekend, more power to you. That's great. Get to your kids' hockey game. I love it. But if you are an entrepreneur and you at some point want to do your own thing and have your own practice and kind of be a leader in your field, you can't do that. It is like all or nothing. And people, I think that's what people don't realize is how much work and time it takes to do that. Because when I first started, now it was just me, but I didn't have a secretary, I didn't have an accountant, or I didn't have anything. So I didn't even do the billing during the day because I was so busy treating. So I would get home and then have to bill everybody for the day. And that was before the internet, right? So that meant like writing out handwritten receipts and
You had to
all of
light your
that sort of stuff.
candle. You had
Lighting a candle, right? Exactly. So you would work all day and then you were tired because treating can drain your brain. You do get tired at the end of the day because it's a lot of cognitive work as well, trying to kind of figure out how you can help this person. And then to go home and do paperwork and accounting is like brutal, right? So then you would say, forget it all. And then you do it on the weekend. So now your whole weekend is taken up getting all the stuff done from the week so you can get to work the next Monday. But you have to kind of, it's all part of the same package. And then when you are busy enough and are making enough income, then you're like, okay, you know what? We're going to hire a secretary. Like we're going to get, and so that helps immensely, right? So it's baby steps. So, and if you don't do all of that yourself at the beginning, you don't really realize what it takes to set up a clinic, right? Or to set up your own business. And I kind of laugh at young people who think they can just run in and open something. I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea. Like one therapist I worked with, she's like, oh, I'm gonna open my own clinic because I want more time at home with my kids. And I'm
right.
like, oh
Yeah. Yeah.
no, you can't. That will never happen,
Your
right?
kids will
Like,
be adults by the time you're
yeah,
ready to do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you're prepared for that,
Right.
and as long as you kind of have to have this sort of driving force that you want to work for yourself.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to work for anybody else. I didn't care how long it took. And where my sister is a lawyer, right? I know she's a lawyer. She's always worked for the government and she's on these contracts and her contract was finishing. And then she says, well, I don't know, maybe I'll open my own practice. I'm like, oh my God, no, 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 no. If you were going to open your own practice, you would have done it 20 years ago
Right.
because you cannot work for the government for 20 years and then decide to open your own practice because you think it's going to be easier.
Right.
No, right?
Yeah.
So she found another government job.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
but you have to have that. There's not that many entrepreneurs out there and you have to have, and I think that's innate. I think you kind of automatically are kind of a leader and you're interested. You've got to take the courses. You got to know who are you hiring and what courses do they have, because I know these are the ones that you have to work with me, right?
Yeah.
So what was the question?
I think it was like, early days, like what was it like? And I think
Yeah.
you painted a very good picture of what it was
Yeah,
like.
it is
You know?
blood, sweat, and
Yeah.
tears,
And I
and a
think that's how
lot of
you,
each until you kind of, and I would say it's 10 years. I didn't take a holiday for about 10 years.
yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
think you have to have 10 years in, and then you can go, okay,
Yeah.
I can step away a little bit now. I remember the first day I met someone, I don't know, like at the grocery store or something. And they said to me, oh, I'm going to your clinic. I'm like, really? And it was the first patient that I had not treated myself,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because we had branched out and started, we now can afford to hire some therapists and hire some staff. And that's a big jump, right? Because as an entrepreneur, do I stay as a solo or do I, because you don't make more money the very first employee that you hire, you probably make less because now
Yeah,
you
you
have more
lose money. Yeah.
expenses. You've got to have two or three to then for it to start to pay for itself. So don't think you're super busy by hiring someone you're going to make more money. You're not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But by about the third or fourth person, then you will. So there's that dividing line, and it's like, okay, do I want to eventually get bigger and go that way, or am I happy with just, no, I'm just going to do this little bit that I can do and stay there. And so for me, I've gone full circle because I had at one point we had 5,000 square feet. I had 10 therapists,
Right.
you know, 10 front desk staff, 4 massage therapists, and then as my animal practice increased, I'm like, okay, I want to back away. I'm ready to kind of retire from humans. And so then I sold, and then now I'm just by myself again. So I've
Right.
like
Right.
literally done
Right.
this big
Yeah.
circle. And now I love where I am because I know all the work that went before.
Hmm.
And now I don't have any of that anymore. Like I don't, it's just me, and I can set my own schedule because all I want to do is travel. So
Right.
but back here, man, sometimes you're like, oh my god, like, I need at least a weekend off. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Yeah.
but
I think that's
you
how you
have to
know.
persevere, and you got to
That's
do
how
it.
you
Yeah,
know, though, that you really want to do. That's
yeah,
how I've always said. I've said,
yeah,
if you're willing to put in the work and forget about vacations and
yeah,
weekends and whatever,
yeah,
then that's how you know you really want to do. Like, if you want
yeah.
to go to the Olympics for free, then
Mhm.
that's how you know you must really freaking love
You
it.
want to volunteer for the Olympics and take 2 weeks off and spend
Because
all this
like now
time?
you're
But
not
yeah,
making money, you've got
yeah,
a flight and you got
yeah,
a hoodie. Okay, great.
yeah,
Like you must really freaking love it, you
yeah.
know?
And
But
that's the
that's
thing.
how
It's
you know.
finding what you love,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, 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 yeah.
What do you think is do you have any good tips for so what like you and I both now obviously doing and loving what we're doing. Do you have any tips for people that don't know what they're doing? Like what how
Mm,
and if they're I find a lot of people are timid about trying new
yeah,
things and maybe they haven't found their thing yet. I think a lot
yeah,
of people listen to this and they're like, I don't know what my thing is.
yeah, yeah. I kind of feel sorry for them. Like, just because my brain doesn't work that way.
Mm,
So I empathize with them. I have like some family members who some have gone through school and exam, they're doing really well and they really like what they're doing and everything has worked out well. And others of the same family are like, I don't know, right? Everyone's journey is different. But and now it's too expensive to go to school for a year if you don't know what you want to do. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And just take a few
Yeah.
courses. Like it's so expensive. So there are things like, well, like there's lots of, what color is your parachute kind of books and, podcasts, like stuff, like open your brain up to some variety of things. Start reading, right? Like personal development. I read a shitload of personal development books, like a whole library of them.
Mm.
And they really help you, right? Listening to uplifting things. Okay, never watch the news.
I
Like,
never watched the news. Yes.
never watch the
I'm with
news.
you.
Never read the paper.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be depressed your entire life. That would be my advice to you. Never
I
watch the
fucking love
news.
that. You're probably the only person that's ever when we're sitting around family dinner sometime and people are talking and they're like, oh, this happened and it's sad and blah. One day I finally had to say, like, oh, also I come from a small town. My parents or my mom specifically will like, reiterate this whole story to me and they'll ask if I remember so and so and this and that. And then the end of it, it's like, well, they're dead now. I'm, oh, fuck. I was like, does anybody have any good news?
Yeah,
What's the most exciting thing that happened to you
yeah,
yesterday?
exactly.
But I think that is
Uh,
part of it. When I asked about routines
yeah,
and habits and stuff earlier, I
yeah.
think you're a really good person at doing that, especially with travel and friends and the other stuff. You're filling your life with good stuff.
Yes.
Stuff that's
Yes.
bringing you joy. And that's a habit,
Yeah.
That's a habit.
Yeah.
That's a routine.
It is a
It can't
routine.
just be eating. It can't just be watching TV. It's gotta
No, no,
be,
no. I also don't watch TV.
yeah.
Like I fill my day with yes, good stuff,
Good
right?
stuff that fills your batteries.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
not that I want to, get on a bandwagon for anybody, but I listened to a guy named Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you
No, I don't
know
know.
who he is. He is a chiropractor by trade and then went into neurosciences. And so he has a whole website and he has a whole teaching curriculum. But what I love about this guy is he talks about your brain. Your brain can change your body. Your brain, you can train your brain to not be in depression.
Yes.
You can train your brain to expect good things in life, right? You can train your brain to do all of this, and it's medically proven through MRIs. It's not like woo woo Ouija board,
Right,
right?
right.
It's medically proven. And so if I'm tired and I'm like, well, I go watch one of his episodes, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay, let's go, like so that's kind of my bread and but like my feeding is
Sure.
from these experts who I admire and think their work is great, and it helps you go, oh, okay, if something not great has happened, I have attracted that. So I don't need to blame, you know, that whoever that was. I need to say, why did I attract that?
Mm.
Right? Like, and so the change has to come from your own brain. And so I don't know, you have a shitty morning, right? Your coffee goes spilling, the dog eats the cat shit, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, why am I attracting this today? Right? Like, it's not just shit happens. It's like, I better listen to Dr. Joe for an hour,
Right, right.
So if you can recognize that in yourself and do whatever you need, if it's going for a run, then you go for a run, right? If it's going whatever. For me, it's like, okay, let's rewire a little bit here and see if we can have a better day than what we're starting with,
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's great. That's all good. That's very good. All right, I got one last question for
Sure.
you. If you could have one, I think I probably already know the answer now for you, but if you could have one thing that would help you in your journey now, what would it be? Aside from $1 million, what would it be?
I would like to have a superpower where I knew where everything I was looking for was. I often think about that. It's
Okay.
like,
You could think about it and it would just materialize.
yes,
Yeah.
like this is what my superpower would be. Um, you know what? I don't really know how to answer that because I'm in probably a pretty good place right now. Like, I'm reducing my hours. I'm looking towards retirement. I'm doing a lot of travel. I just got a new puppy. So mm, I think keeping my brain. I think the brain work is what I would the biggest thing I would want to continue on in my life is understanding that I'm in charge of what happens to me, right? And it can be good or it can be bad, but I've attracted either way. And so a lot of good things are happening, and so obviously my brainwaves are on in a good place right now. So
That's good. A lot of good work.
yeah.
I think I really, yeah, I agree with that too. Early days of sickness for me now, I'm like, no, I'm not sick. I will
Yep,
myself to not be sick. I'm like, no, I'm not sick. I
100%.
don't have a cold.
Yeah, no. I've attracted that somehow. I'm gonna unattract it right
Yeah.
now. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't, and who know, I don't know, but that kind of stuff, I fully agree with you there. And it's like, yeah, you can't blame anybody else for any of the shit that's going on. And if
Mm-mm,
you want to
mm-mm.
do cool shit, you have to take charge of it.
You have to take charge of it, and you also have to expect that you're gonna have cool shit to do,
Yes.
because it's that expectation that okay, it might not have happened today, but man, I think something's happening soon because I can feel it in the air, right?
Right.
Like there's going to be something cool happening soon. Yeah,
You just got to believe it. All right.
yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you and I appreciate all your time you've given
My
me today.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. And we will talk soon, probably on an
Awesome.
elephant.
What's that? Oh yeah, that's a great story.
Probably on an elephant. We'll go walk some elephants. All right, thank you, Carrie.
All right, see you later.
What a joy for life, right? Can you all just agree with me that Carrie Smith is a big, giant bean of energy and a good joy for life, right? If you listened all the way through and you're here now, man, I hope you're out there running a marathon or skiing behind Clydesdale. Maybe don't try and work on a boa constrictor. That might not be your thing. But man, talk about filling your cup, right? And managing your schedule and managing your ups and downs and understanding why you're working and what you're working for, right? I love when we talked about that ability of like, now she's working so that she can know how many trips she wants to go on to, because that's what she's doing for her life, right? And she's filling her life with cool shit. That's the whole point of what we're doing on this planet, isn't it? So that is a woman who I was so excited to bring to the podcast, to bring to you guys. She is living it, and she's been living it for as long as I've known Carrie. She's been living that. I always, one thing I really wanted to talk about was that her love for learning as well. I just want to reiterate that. I have always thought Carrie Smith was at the top of her game, and she was, and she is. But to me, I was like, man, you could so easily just rest on your laurels, right? You could just be where you are and enjoy life. But I've always appreciated and respected her love for learning, you know, her ability to continually push the needle, to literally push the needle, and to move forward. And what an incredible journey Carrie's had. And I hope that you guys get out there. I hope that you have an awesome opportunity. I hope that you say yes to more things. I hope that when you listen to Carrie's episode, our conversation, I hope that you really take her joy for life, and that you can find the ability to just say yes to more things, more opportunities. Keep your mind wide open. And that's where I'm going to leave us. I hope I see you guys and listen to you guys and hear you guys on episode 63. I always appreciate you guys for coming here. I can't say it enough. I appreciate all your comments. Oh, also, if you're on Spotify now, you can absolutely leave comments, which I will love to have conversations with you folks about what it is you're doing, what you're up to, what you would like to be doing. What do you think your barriers are? And until then, I hope you guys have an awesome day. I hope you guys have a great week, a great couple weeks, and I'll see you on the next episode to do more cool shit, my friends.